If a person you used to be head over heels for was suddenly vulnerable and needed help, what would you do? Would you get involved, or would you just walk on by? Me, I'm Ryan Cole. I'm a successful architect, known for designing some of the most famous buildings in the city. I had everything people dream of, you know? A great career, a fancy lifestyle, and everyone seemed to admire me. But underneath all that, there was an emptiness I just couldn't shake. Nights in my big penthouse felt kind of lonely. And even with all the praise, I often found myself wishing for something more, something I'd lost a long time ago. Then, one night, in the middle of all the city noise and craziness, my life took a sharp turn. I ran into Clara Hayes, the woman I used to love more than anything in the world. Seeing her again forced me to think about my past and about the kind of man I'd become. She was in a bad way, struggling with a lot, and it started me on a journey to try and make things right, find love again, and maybe even find myself. At 35, I was pretty much the definition of a successful architect. I had big projects all over the city, and people respected me for how hard I worked and for my talent. My face was always popping up in those fancy architecture magazines, with articles talking about my new designs and forward-thinking ideas. But honestly, behind all the hype, my life wasn't all that great. Every night, I went back to my big penthouse, way up in a luxury building. It was perfectly designed, with nice furniture, big windows with amazing views, and a silence that just felt wrong, like some unwanted guest. I had all the success and praise, but I still felt this nagging emptiness that I just couldn't get rid of. My phone was always blowing up. I had messages from clients, reminders from my assistant, and a never-ending list of meetings. It left me with hardly any time for anything else. Work took over my whole life. But sometimes when I actually took a break, the quiet in my place was almost deafening, like a cold fog wrapping around me. In those moments, I couldn't help but wonder, what the heck am I missing? I'd built this amazing career, but it cost me a lot. I'd lost touch with people, buried my feelings, and my heart seemed to have gone off course. One busy evening, I was sitting in my fancy car, stuck in the worst traffic. The red lights seemed to last forever, and the horns were driving me nuts. My phone was buzzing like crazy with notifications and reminders about unfinished work. I sighed and looked out the window. Across the street, I saw a woman struggling with a bunch of grocery bags. They looked heavy, and then one of them ripped, spilling fruit all over the sidewalk. She bent down to pick it up, moving slowly and looking tired. I was about to look away when I realized. Suddenly, she seemed unsteady on her feet, grabbing her stomach like she was trying to keep herself from falling. My heart just stopped. It was Clara Hayes, all right. But her hair didn't have that shine it used to. Her eyes looked worn out, and she'd filled out some plus. There was no mistaking it. She was pregnant. Clara, the woman I'd once loved more than anything, was standing right there, looking weak and beat. Without even thinking, I jumped out of my car and ran across the street. I got to her just as she stumbled and went down. "Clara, can you hear me?" I yelled, my voice shaking. She just groaned softly and closed her eyes. Thinking fast, I scooped her up in my arms. She was so light, almost frail, and she was trembling against me. As I carried her to the car, I felt her weak breath on my neck, and a shot of fear went right through me. I jammed on the gas and sped toward the hospital, the city lights just blurring by. All I could think was, I can't lose her. As I sat in the hospital waiting room, memories of Clara came flooding back, like scenes from some old movie, bringing back both the good times and the pain. We'd met when I was just starting out, a young and hungry architect with nothing to my name. Back then, I was working at this small firm, just trying to get my designs off the ground. Clara, who was a grade school teacher, was my biggest fan. She'd listen to my wild ideas, cheer me up after every rejection, and she always told me, "Ryan, you're gonna make it. Just keep pushing." We lived in this tiny, beat-up apartment with mismatched furniture from thrift stores. Every time I tried to cook, the kitchen smelled like burnt food, but we'd always laugh it off. Those days were tough, but having Clara around made me feel like I could do anything. But as my career started taking off, things changed. I was spending less and less time with Clara. Romantic dates turned into late-night meetings and business trips all the time. Clara tried to understand, but she couldn't ignore the growing distance between us. One night, after some fancy networking event, Clara asked me straight up, "Do you even feel like we're living in the same world anymore?" I was kinda shocked, but I brushed it off, saying, "You're a part of my world, Clara. I wouldn't be where I am without you." But she didn't believe it. My promises started sounding empty, and eventually she left, wanting to start over on her own. When the doctor finally told me that Clara was okay, I went into her room, my head spinning. She was lying in bed, looking smaller and more delicate than I'd ever seen her. Her hands were gently resting on her stomach, like she was protecting the baby. "Clara," I said softly, pulling a chair up to the bed. She opened her eyes, looking tired but wary. "Ryan, you don't have to be here," she said, her voice weak. "You collapsed in the street, Clara," I replied, my voice full of worry. "I couldn't just leave you there." Clara sighed and turned her head towards the window. After a long silence, I finally asked, "How did things get this bad? You're living in your car, Clara. Why?" She hesitated, like she was deciding whether to tell me the truth. Finally, she started talking, her voice quiet but steady. "When I left you, I really thought I could make a fresh start. I got a new job, found a little apartment, and things seemed okay at first. But then the company started laying people off, and I was one of the first to go. I didn't want to go crawling back home. I didn't want anyone to see that I'd failed. So I tried to make it work here." She paused, her eyes looking far away, remembering the tough times. "I tried to keep it all together, Ryan," she admitted, her voice shaking. "But my savings ran out faster than I thought they would. The rent, the bills, everything just kept piling up. I looked for work every single day, but nothing came through. When I couldn't afford the apartment anymore, I didn't have any choice. The car was all I had. I didn't want anyone to know how low I'd sunk." I just sat there, stunned. Her words hit me hard. "Why didn't you call me?" I asked softly, feeling a wave of guilt. Clara turned to me, her face harder than before. "Call you? What for? You've got your own life, Ryan. I wasn't going to be a burden on you." "Clara, you know I'd never turn my back on you," I said, almost begging. "I had a right to know." "Ryan, just don't," she interrupted sharply, her eyes flashing. "There are things you don't need to know, and this is one of them." I wanted to push her, but when I saw how exhausted she looked, I stopped myself. I knew it wasn't the right time to press her for answers, even though I was dying to know more. After we left the hospital, I was determined that Clara wasn't going back to living in that car. "You're coming to my place, and that's that," I told her firmly. At first, she argued. "Ryan, I don't need your pity," she said, trying to sound strong. But I cut her off, my voice leaving no room for argument. "Clara, this isn't pity. It's about doing what's right. You need a safe place, and I'm going to make sure you have it." My place, big and modern, seemed to come alive the moment Clara walked in. But she was still on guard, looking uncomfortable in all the luxury. Sensing she was hesitant, I tried everything I could think of to make her feel more at home. I started with small things, getting a room ready for her, stocking the kitchen with her favorite foods, and even trying to cook something myself, even though I've never been much of a chef. One evening, I decided to make something easy, pasta. But I ended up burning the sauce, and the kitchen quickly filled with smoke. Clara stood in the doorway, chuckling as I frantically waved a towel at the smoke detector. "Ryan, I think we should just order takeout," she said, trying not to laugh. "I just wanted to do something nice for you," I mumbled, my face turning red. She laughed, stepping forward to take the spoon from my hand. "Next time, let me teach you. You okay?" Slowly, things started to get easier between us. I went with Clara to her doctor's appointments, listened carefully to what the doctor said, and helped her get ready for the baby. Clara, still being careful, started to trust me a little more. One night, after dinner, we were sitting in the living room. Clara was folding these tiny baby clothes, her hands moving slowly, while I just watched her, my heart heavy with things I hadn't said yet. "Clara," I started, breaking the silence. "I just want to say I'm really glad you're here. I know I messed things up bad before, and I really want to make it right." Clara stopped, putting down the baby onesie she was holding. Her face got serious, and she hesitated before speaking. "Ryan, there's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice shaking a little. I felt a shift in the air. "What is it?" I asked, sitting up straighter. "The baby isn't yours." Those words hit me like a punch to the gut. I was speechless for a minute. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to stay calm even though my heart was sinking. Clara looked down, not meeting my eyes. "I know I should have told you sooner. But when I saw you again, I was scared. I was scared that if you knew, you wouldn't want to help me." I just sat there for a few moments, feeling a mix of shock, hurt, and confusion. But when I looked at Clara and saw the fear and vulnerability in her eyes, I knew what I had to do. "Clara," I said slowly, my voice steady, "I'm not just here because of the baby. I'm here because of you. I care about both of you. And that's not going to change." Clara looked at me, her eyes filling with tears, not sad tears, but something more. "Ryan," she started, her voice breaking. I reached out and took her hand, not looking away. "I'm staying, Clara, no matter what." As Clara got closer to her due date, she started getting more tired than usual. I noticed she was walking slower and would sometimes wince like she was in pain. One night, while I was looking over some paperwork in the living room, I heard her call my name from her room, her voice weak. I rushed in and found her sitting on the bed, holding her belly, breathing fast. "Ryan, I think it's happening," she gasped, her voice shaking with pain. Without thinking, I helped her up. "Don't worry, I'm taking you to the hospital right now," I said, trying to stay calm even though I was starting to panic. On the way, I held her hand tight, trying to reassure her. "It's going to be okay, Clara. I'm here." At the hospital, the doctors said she was in premature labor. They rushed her into the emergency room, and I was left in the waiting area, pacing back and forth. Time felt like it was standing still. Every time a nurse came out, I jumped up. "How is she? How's the baby?" I asked, desperate. Finally, a nurse came up to me with a smile. "She's delivered a baby girl. Both mother and baby are doing okay, but the little one will need to be watched closely since she came early." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. When I went into the room, Clara was lying in bed, looking pale but smiling gently. "Ryan," she whispered. I walked over, taking her hand, my voice thick with emotion. "You did amazing, Clara. I'm so proud of you." That night, I stayed by her side the whole time. I stayed awake, making sure she was comfortable, getting her water, and standing by the incubator, watching over our tiny daughter. I didn't say anything out loud, but I promised myself that I would protect them both, Clara and little Ellie, with everything I had. 2 years went by after Ellie was born, and our lives changed in ways neither of us could have imagined. I didn't just keep my promise to stay. I became a big part of Clara and her daughter's life. One afternoon, we went for a picnic at a park nearby. Clara laid out the food on a blanket under a tree, while I played with Ellie, who was now this energetic toddler. Their laughter filled the air, making Clara's heart feel warm. As the sun started to set, painting the sky in colors of orange and gold, I turned back to Clara. I put Ellie down on the blanket so she could play with her toys, and I walked over to Clara, my eyes showing how determined I was. "Clara," I said, dropping down on one knee. Clara looked surprised, her eyes wide. "I don't even know how to say how much you and Ellie mean to me," I started, my voice steady and warm. "Seeing you two every day has made me realize that my life doesn't mean anything unless you're both in it." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a little box, opening it to show her a ring. "Clara Hayes, you gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve it. You and Ellie have given my life a purpose I didn't even know I needed. I want to spend the rest of my life showing you how much you both mean to me. Clara, will you marry me?" Clara covered her mouth, tears running down her face. After a few moments of silence, she nodded. "Yes, Ryan, I will." Ellie clapped her hands and giggled, not knowing what had just happened, and it made us both laugh. In that moment, I knew I'd found my family, and I promised to do everything I could to keep it together forever. Our wedding was simple, but full of love. Only our closest friends and family were there. Clara wore a plain white dress, and her eyes sparkled with happiness as she held my hand. Ellie, our cute little flower girl, was smiling as she watched her parents say their vows. Clara knew this was a new beginning, not just for her, but for our whole family. After the wedding, we built a life filled with love and laughter. The coldness in my house was gone, replaced by the sounds of Ellie's little feet and the talking and laughing during family dinners. I often spent my evenings teaching Ellie how to draw, and I hope you like the way I've rewritten the story. I tried my best to follow your instructions and capture the tone you were looking for. Let me know if you have any other projects for me. Draw and make believe magical houses, while Clara would read her bedtime stories, filling the room with giggles. About a year after we got married, we had another addition to the family, a healthy baby boy we named Noah. This time, I was there for every part of Clara's pregnancy, from the doctor's appointments to the sleepless nights. And Ellie was so curious about becoming a big sister. The day Noah was born, I just cried when I held him for the first time. Clara smiled softly at me and said, "You did it, Ryan. We did it." Our lives weren't perfect, but every time we faced something hard, it only made us closer. I jumped into being a dad with everything I had, whether it was Ellie's bedtime giggles or Noah's late-night crying. Every moment, big or small, showed how strong our love and family were, the family we'd worked so hard to rebuild. We had family trips to the park, cozy dinners filled with laughter, and quiet times that just made us happy. Ryan, Clara, Ellie, and Noah were more than just a family. We were living proof that love isn't about finding someone who's perfect. It's about choosing to be with each other every single day, no matter what gets in the way.